Okay.
All
All right.
right.
Good deal. Well, hey, Art, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Mike, how are you?
Uh, Pretty good. We got this thing here in Austin. It was called like cool weather. It was real weird, real strange. I don't know. It's kind of a
What's
different
it like
phenomenon.
less than 90?
Yeah. Less less than 90. Yeah. Less than 95 even.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
great to connect with you today.
Excellent. Yes. Maybe we should start off just introducing each other and
Yeah.
our companies and I know we're gonna have some good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, sounds great. After you.
All right. I am Art Gross. I am the CEO of Breach Secure Now. We are the channel leader in human cybersecurity, with simulated phishing, employee training, dark web monitoring, written policies. We have 2,700 MSP partners, over 20,000 clients, and 1 million users on our platform. And we've been doing this for like 13 or 14 years. So, early adopters of security training, HIPAA compliance, and here we are. And Mike, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, my name is Mike Roth. I'm the CEO and founder at Evo Security. Basically, what we do is, at a high level, is identity and access management. So, unpacking the identity component, that means multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, uh, unified directory services, basically how you sync your source of truth, and then all of the configuration that goes around with the multi-tenant MSP only product. So we do not sell to the enterprise. We do not sell around MSPs. All we do is build our product for MSPs and for their customers. And the other thing we do, which is the access component, is privilege access management. So this means making sure that when an administrator is signing into or logging into a resource at their customer or within their own company, that they're not sharing credentials. We have a password rotation engine, and they're doing true multi-factor authentication. So we're verifying the real identity of the administrator as they gain access to a resource. We got some other really exciting stuff that we're going to be releasing this year in the PAM space, but that's what we do. IAM. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. And I love the fact that we're both channel only.
Yeah.
Just focus on MSPs, helping MSPs, selling through MSPs. And I know the MSP community likes that as well. As an MSP, I don't know whether you know that, but I'm also an MSP. I've been running an MSP for 23 years. So I come with multiple hats. I come with the MSP hat, I come with a
Yeah.
cybersecurity hat, and a vendor hat. So, and I know what partners like. They like channel only vendors. They like, to know that that the vendor's not going to go around them and sell to their customers and all that. So,
Yeah, that's actually I didn't know that you also had an MSP, so that's pretty cool. I love the
yeah.
perspective. I think, you know, when Evo was getting founded, the approach that I took, and I was kind of looking out at the attack surface, and I was thinking, um, okay, here's all this wave of cyber crime that's moving towards the mid market and into the SMB, and MSPs are the primary way that a lot of those companies are served. And
Yep.
so it just really, the first thing that was glaring to me as I looked at other solutions out there, is that no one had really drawn a hard line in the sand and said, hey, you know what, we need to build an identity solution to solve these problems and kind of mitigate this wave.
Yep.
And that was our big influence to go channel only. So, and we're really
Yep.
passionate about that. We mean it. If we get a direct um, lead into our system, we just kick it over to
Right.
our partner in the area and try and work with them. So
Yep. And it's interesting because the SMB market, like you said, it's all about MSPs. Very hard to sell to that, directly to a three-person accounting firm, right? But they have an
yeah,
MSP that's supporting them and who trusts them, or who the client trusts the MSP to make those recommendations. So, you know, um, it's really interesting when you look at it at like microscopically. It's hard to sell to two, companies with 2 employees or 5 employees or 15 employees or 30. But when you look at it from the macro perspective, there's millions of SMBs supported by hundreds of thousands of MSPs. It's exciting to look at it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I can't agree more with that. I think, yeah, that's spot on. We think about that all the time, and it's really interesting too. Like when you start building a product that is channel only, and you think about how do I serve, our partners in the best way possible, and also though you have to start thinking about, well, how do we serve their customers too? Because if
Yeah.
like if you're an MSP, I mean, and you know best, but if you're gonna, there's some products that you just sort of have to eat the cost because it's like these are just operational overhead you have to use to run your business, and then but for the most part, like you're wanting to know, okay, whether it's a security tool or whether it's a whatever the vertical is, whatever like category the tool is in, you want to be able to make money off of that
Right.
as you sell it into your customers. So we think about that too. We want
Yeah.
to make sure there's margin. Yeah.
Definitely, absolutely. And one of the things is, and this is my perspective, if you ask a client, do you want antivirus? The client's going to say, isn't there free antivirus in Windows? If you ask them if they want a firewall, they'll say, doesn't my cable modem, isn't that kind of a firewall? Will that work? So there's some products that you should ask clients, is this good for your business? There's others that should be a core part of your stack, right? If you're looking at cybersecurity, there's some pieces that should not be optional. You're not, no MSP is going to take on a client without antivirus or EDR, MDR, whatever alphabet soup you want to use for that, right? We know that it's a core part of what we need to do to support an SMB. And you don't ask, you basically say it's part of my managed services. And I'm starting to see the same thing going with security awareness training, multi-factor authentication. If you ask the client, they're going to say, nah, multi-factor authentication is a pain, or do we really need to train our employees? It gets to the point, well, yeah, we know employees are the weakest link. We know employees make mistakes, they reuse passwords. We can't have this optional anymore. This has to be a core part of what we do. And I think we're starting to see that trend, and
Yeah.
it's starting to become, embedded in managed services.
Yeah. That's a really good segue because, the perspective I have is like, as we were entering this space and I was looking out, okay, what are the most common attacks and how do they occur? Like this is my first time personally as a vendor. So I've
Right.
always been on the other side. I was an engineer, and then I was kind of on the business side of things. So, I was thinking about it practically, like, okay, well, if I'm trying to solve a problem where I just don't want to get hacked and I don't want that to lead to some bad situation, because as a business owner, like this is my livelihood, right? Like this is how I feed my
Right.
family. MSPs are also entrepreneurs. Like that's a thing that, I personally think about a lot. So it's like, how are we going to best um, serve the MSP and their customers? But when you look at it and you say, okay, what is the most common way? Like whatever percentage, there's all kinds of percentages out there, but
Yeah.
let's just say like over 50% of the time,
Right. Majority of the breaches. Yep.
majority,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It always comes down to uh, somehow exploiting or tricking the user,
Yep.
and then using those and taking their credentials and then using them to log into something that they shouldn't be logging into. So how do you
Yep.
solve those two things? It's teach individuals
Yep.
how the tricks work and what to look out for, and how to educate them. And then knowing that every person is imperfect. Like we're going to, to your point, we're going to make mistakes and that's okay. You just need to know about it fast. But if you want to shut the door, like just prevent things from happening, do multi-factor authentication, and it
Yep.
and it needs to not just go on like an app, a web app, or just the desktop, or just this, server over here. Like it needs to go across the board, because then there's like lateral movement, because now they have your creds
Yep.
and they can figure out how to get into things. So to me, the pairing between like what you guys do and what we do, if you just do that as a baseline, I mean, you're going to solve a lot of your problems.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah.
If you just do that, you probably lower the chance of a breach by, 50, 60, 70, 80%, maybe more, that's really what we have to focus on. And clearly there's other safeguards. I don't think, I don't want to give the message you train employees and put MFA and you're good. But, obviously
Totally
you need
agree.
to
Yeah.
do backup. You need to do, log collection and all those other pieces. It's
Yep.
a layers of security. But as a floor, you have to train employees. You have to train them on how they're going to get scammed, where their credentials are, why they shouldn't reuse it, and strengthen them as much as possible. But if they do make a mistake, if they do get socially engineered, it's the technical controls like MFA and other technical controls that are going to protect them and the organization. I think as a floor, you have to do both of those, the training and MFA and it would go so much further than where we are today. I
Mm.
really, I always say we probably wouldn't have a cybersecurity problem if we didn't have a human problem. And so you can fix
Yeah.
the humans as much as you can, but then you need to put the protection around mistakes that are going to happen, not may happen, are going to happen.
So what are some of the, from a security awareness training standpoint, what are some of the trends that you're seeing today as far as mistakes, innocent mistakes that
Yep.
users make or employees at businesses make today? You always see these different news clippings or articles around, um, a spoofed email that looked, I mean, just perfect. It looked exactly like the vendor, but then if you pay attention to the
Yep.
domain, it's like,
It's a one instead of an
yeah,
I or something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So what
Yeah.
are you seeing?
We're seeing a whole bunch of stuff, right? People are busy. People are rushing between one task to another. They're rushing from work to pick up their kids at, daycare, they're working, or a baseball game. People are just rushing and they're either on computers or they're on their phones. And given the right circumstance, anyone could be tricked. In fact, I wrote about this on LinkedIn. I fell for a phishing scam. I mean, my whole company's about phishing and training and protecting about it, but it looked legit. And at that moment, I was on a phone, and so yeah, you have your normal phishing emails that you think your brain thinks that this is going to be legitimate because to me. Or, definitely what you were mentioning, the spoofing of addresses. And what really, I think just to peel back that layer, it's pretty interesting. Um, what happens is sometimes that your own email doesn't get compromised, but the party on the third side is compromised, and criminals are sitting in that email. And then when they know that there's a transaction that's going to happen with money, say there's an invoice sent, that's when they set up a spoofed email with one character off, a domain, and then they send it from that domain, the invoice, and you pay the invoice and you pay it to the criminal. So criminals just sit and lurk in email waiting for that moment. So, and there's other, the social engineering, other types, but we're seeing a lot of that happening right now.
Yeah, it's always really interesting. We actually had we onboarded a new employee, and we always talk about identity and access management fits really nicely into the whole concept around zero trust and things like that. Um, in fact, I think it's almost directly aligned with the concept of zero trust, but it's a little overused of a
Right.
phrasing right now, but it makes sense in the context. But what the thing that's interesting to me about that is, to me, zero trust means like many things. It means, okay, you're doing something mechanical where you've implemented this solution, the software, and it actually shuts things down. So in the case of identity, it's the multi-factor authentication. If, for example, that cyber criminal were to steal your credentials and then you went and then they went to try and log into your Office 365 or um, your machine somehow or another, if they got access to it, well, if they knew your credentials because you logged into a spoofed website, well then now they just have free access right into your stuff. unless you have MFA. So that's kind of like never ever trust anyone when they're trying to log in. Make them prove that, right?
Yep.
The other piece is like once you get inside whatever you're doing, you should have, least privilege, least access
Yes.
possible. So that's kind of the other half of it. But there's kind of a third component I think about to zero trust and going, again, aligning with what you guys do. It's the human element. Um, and what I mean by that is like relationships exploiting trust between two people. So,
Right.
for example, we had a new employee and he got a text message and it said, "Hey, this is Mike.
Hmm.
Something, something, something. Click this, log in here." Right. So we practice every week. We talk about security and training and things like that. And he immediately reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, did you text me? I don't even have
Yep.
his number." Right.
Right.
So,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, that is a perfect example of like social engineering and exploiting trust between two people. Yeah.
We see that all the time. My company is attacked almost on a weekly, twice a week. I mean, the criminals are looking at LinkedIn. They're
Yeah.
mapping an organization. They have our organization mapped. So it's so many times I'm hearing, I got something from you, Art, and did you? So I've trained everyone. I put my number in your contacts, right? So if it comes from Art, it's my number, right? If it's a text message, but emails. I mean, we're constantly being bombarded, and and criminals are absolutely watching LinkedIn and connections throughout the company. I'm sure they're doing it to clients as well because people post on there. They're putting that stuff out there socially, and it could definitely be used as an attack vector.
Yeah, totally agree. We've had similar conversations internally, and you must imagine that cyber criminals are out there. They're saying, okay, they're looking for easy targets, right? They're looking for
Yeah.
mistakes. And what really struck me as we were getting into the founding of Evo and building the business was that in the concept that hit me really hard, and I think it was kind of hard to understand or really uh, absorb until it was explained in a different context. But normal, and that is that normally people would think about, oh, only cyber criminals only just want to go to these large organizations.
Right.
That's where that's where the pot of gold is and things like that. But then, several years back when we realized that, look, it doesn't really matter how big your organization is. It's just how much are you willing to
Right.
pay to get your
Right.
livelihood back? And if that's all of the money in your bank account, if that's just some of it, they're just looking for easy targets. A lot of the cyber criminals that are hitting like the SMB, they're the same type of criminals that go into the parking lot at night and are looking for the open door handles to
Yeah.
just go and smash
Yeah,
and
I
grab.
take it a different approach, and totally agree with you. When you have initial access brokers, all they're doing is using dark web credentials or
Yeah.
stolen credentials or spoofed websites. They don't even know who you are until they get into your network. And once they're in your network, then they realize, oh, you know what? This is a big company. We can
Yeah.
ransom them, or this is a small company. We do so. We can do something with them, right? So it's like and that's I think a message that SMBs have to take to their client. I mean MSPs have to take to their clients is everyone thinks I'm not going to be attacked because I'm a small business. Criminals going to get in and then they're going to figure out what to do with you, right? So most likely you're going to be attacked randomly, right? With the credentials that an employee had leaked through a third party breach, and someone's going to try it on their Office 365, and then they're in, then they figure out. So I like to say to our partners, cyber crime is a random thing, right? So if you think you're too small, randomly, it doesn't matter how small you are. It really does matter if credentials are out there, if they're reused, and if they're not implementing MFA, they're going to get in. And then, from there, then you're going to be a victim.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And how as an MSP and as you talk with other peers, how do you think about I don't know if anyone would really argue with, hey, gotta do security awareness training and you gotta do MFA if you're security minded. But
Right.
how do you how do you convey that message to your customers? Or when you talk to your peers, how are they conveying that message to their customers? Are they selling fear-based selling? Are they product-based selling? Are they selling more of kind of like, hey, this is the value that we're offering to your organization, and these are the scenarios that we're trying to protect you against. And if you do these things now, then you're not going to have to pay this amount
Yep.
of a premium on your insurance. How do you go about that with
Yeah,
breach?
it's all over the place. And one of the things I hear from people from partners that struggle with it is, clients don't care about this. They give me excuses of why they can't train their employees, why they don't like MFA, or it's going to slow people down. And you really have to make cybersecurity relatable to the client. Let them know. Like, one of the things that I hate is when people talk about like the Target breach or this $5 million breach or this $25 million breach. SMBs don't care about $25 million breach. When you're making 2 million in revenue, $25 million breach is a death sentence. And we all know we're going to die, but we don't think about it all the time. So what you really have to do is position it as there's pain in a breach. There's financial pain, there's reputation pain. Your employees will be distracted. You won't grow. If you start to peel back the layers of exactly what happens in a breach, not scaring, this is the truth. You're going to spend hours with attorneys and forensics, and you're going to, have angry customers. When you can make it relatable to that SMB, they're much more open to, I don't want to experience that. What do we need to do to not experience that? So I think the key is to position cybersecurity in a relatable way and implement solutions that match the risk, right? All right, well, it's going to cost you $150,000 to implement this. Small business is going to say, I'd rather gamble, right?
Yeah.
If it's going to cost you $10 a month, or whatever that is, oh, let's do that. So make it relatable, make it affordable, make it inside the process that employees can use on a daily basis. Those are successful MSPs that can relate, that can relay that message to a small business.
In the same vein, what if an SMB or a customer says to a partner, "Hey, look, I get the experience that or the outcome that could occur to my business, and I'm willing to gamble. I really don't want to buy these solutions, and they're not important to me."
Yeah,
As an MSP, you have a responsibility. Obviously, it's that they're going to trust you to protect
right.
their business, and if something does happen, you're going to get the first call and probably some of the blame. But how
Yep.
do you have that conversation? You're saying, hey, look, this is what we think is best for you and your users. This is going to protect your livelihood, and if you don't want to do it, do you just let them do it and
Right.
you make them sign like a waiver,
Yeah, like
or
a waiver, but
yeah,
it's a shared responsibility. Okay. So, as someone who's had clients that had ransomware, you know, I'm deploying techs to try to rebuild that network, right? And it's taking my resources away from other clients. It's a nightmare when a client has data breach or ransomware. So from an MSP perspective, you can't just, okay, I know you don't want to spend $150 or $1,000, 1,200, and we'll just let it go. I mean, one, you have to protect yourself legally from waivers of denial of service, from your managed service agreements. Two, the other point, what I was saying is to including it. Like, we are going to include this. This is what you're going to do. Okay. And, we're not going to support you because no MSP, I'll go back to what I said before, no MSP is going to support a client that says, I don't need antivirus. I'm just going to go without it. I don't need any security. I don't want to spend it. You're taking on too much risk because, as you said, Mike, they're going to blame you, right? Okay, it sounds good. It sounds good until, so it really, I think it segues into our next conversation, but let's just quickly, I'll finish this point with cyber liability insurance. Okay.
yeah,
Because if a client has a breach and they have cyber liability insurance, the carrier is going to say, why didn't you train your employees? Why didn't you have MFA? And they're going to say, well, our MSP didn't put it on. And then what happens now is the carrier pays out the claim and sues the MSP. You were responsible for this breach because you didn't put the correct cyber, security controls around there, right? So the bottom line is, if you let it go, they're going to, you could be facing a carrier that comes after you. Subordination, subrogation is what the terminology is.
Yeah, that to me, like as I think about the the risk of being an MSP in today's world, is probably the thing that would keep me up at night.
Yep.
And that's why, it's easy for me to say as a vendor, but again, this is my first time as a vendor, and I became a vendor because I wanted to make a difference. And to me, MFA was like the highest impact for the lowest cost,
Yep. Yep.
that we can do, and like actually build something really cool and really effective. And I think about that often. It's like, and we do hear it, and we'll have even, other MSPs will come to us and we'll say, hey, we just want MFA for our endpoints. We're not worried
Right.
about web apps right now. We're not worried about any sort of appliances or devices like VPN switches, things like
Yeah.
that. And we say, hey, we really think you should reconsider that. And so we actually have similar conversations that an MSP has um, with their customers, just trying to make a recommendation and saying, it should be a pervasive thing. And if anybody, Nick Wolf is on the call here, so hey Nick, if anybody's met Nick, and he's been doing a bunch of different podcasts and stuff recently to kind of spread the Evo word, but he's a great example. I think we talked about this before as well, was the traveler's insurance, where that's exactly what happened, is that there was one company that had MFA on one thing and didn't have it on the other
Right.
thing, and then they said,
Well,
hey,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting case, and this is really, this, if you're an MSP out there listening to this, if you haven't heard about the Travelers case, I think it's very impactful. So the client attested on their application that they have MFA throughout the question was, are you using MFA to protect all devices? And they said yes. And then they turned out they were a ransomware victim, and they what happened. And it turned out that the client only had MFA on some of the infrastructure, not all of it. And of course, the ones where they didn't have it, that was the attack vector. And then Travelers came back and said, we're not paying this claim. We are not paying it because you attested that you have MFA everywhere. You didn't. And because you didn't, then there was a breach. Travelers took them to court. The client took them to court. They went to court. Travelers won and did not have to pay the case. And so it's that piece is really important, because if your clients and MSPs are being asked to help with cyber insurance applications every day, if your client says they're doing something, they better be doing it, because even though they have that policy, it doesn't matter until they put in a claim.
Yeah, I think your volume there, Art, got cut out. Still no volume. All right. Well, while you're taking that on, Art, I'll jump in here real quick. Um, yeah. So one of the things that we uh, learned from the traveler's case is that how how should we sell MFA? How do we have a conversation of MFA with the partner, but also, build the appropriate materials and content and education and enablement around what does that, what does that look like? How do you actually create a program around that? Because, people don't really like, I mean, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what I want to do today really badly? I want to go do MFA. It's going to be so awesome. Yeah, I got you back. I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, people don't wake up and want to do that. But to me, it's one of those things where you just got to do it. It's like brushing your teeth. You just got to brush your teeth. If you
Right.
don't do it, it's going to eventually lead to bad things, and you just got to do it. So, it's our job as a company to figure out, okay, how do we um, create a product or a solution or a level of engagement that kind of softens that friction and demonstrates to the partner and to the end user, like, hey, look, you really got to do this stuff, right? And I think that's why I was really looking forward to this call and the pairing between um, security awareness training and identity and access and insurance. It ties so tightly together. So
It really does. And, one of the things, just a different perspective, SMBs, it's not our product costs. Okay. Training employees is not expensive. MFA is not expensive. It's inconvenience. It's taking the time. It's the SMB seeing the value of doing that, right? It's like, I got to use, MFA every time I log in. When you think about it, okay, it's a little more of an inconvenience, but is it really that bad? No, right? Training employees, does it take some time? Yeah, but is it really that bad? No. So MSPs have to relay that message to their clients that yes, it's inconvenient, but that the inconvenience is worth the lowering of the risk. And that's a tough message. And I think MSPs, and to your point, MSPs say, maybe we could just put it on the firewall or just for remote access, because at least I can make one step into there. So, and it's a little bit of pain that the client has to face, and we can keep marching down and keep getting bigger and bigger in terms of more implementation. So, it's definitely MSPs are stuck in the middle a lot of times between what they know they need to do and what they want to do and what the client is willing to do, and willing to accept. And sometimes you get out of meetings and you just want to bang your head against a wall. It's like, I know you need MFA. I know you need to train these employees. I just can't convince you. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. And it's a tough situation to be in.
yeah, it really is. We feel for all the MSPs out there that have to deal with that every day. I mean, it's unfortunately the nature of the world and kind of where we are. So,
But what, the good news is what we were talking about, what's making life easier is cyber insurance. Okay.
Yeah.
So, we talk about compliance, HIPAA, the FTC safeguards and all of that. It's like, yeah, that potentially could drive a client to adopt, security solutions, but cyber insurance is absolutely driving that. We're seeing it all the time because if a client wants a cyber insurance policy, they need to attest on their application that they're training employees, that they're implementing MFA, that they're backing up their data, that they have, email protection. So, there's a good chance that if you're not doing this, you're not going to get cyber insurance, or your premium is going to be significantly higher. And I keep saying that cyber insurance is the greatest driver of cybersecurity that I've seen so far.
Yeah. So we have to, nobody likes to hire a lawyer until you have a problem, and then you really love your lawyer, right?
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
It's kind of like the same thing with insurance. Yeah, it's going to save you, and but in order to get it, you have to meet certain requirements
Yep.
to do so. And kind of these foundational basics of training and MFA and privilege access are
Yep.
absolutely
Those are the core. There's like
yeah,
5 core pieces, and those two, training employees and MFA and data backup and recovery on a time frame that makes sense, so you don't have to pay a ransom, or on every single application that we've evaluated.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit of ground today. Do you want to leave any sort of final parting messages for our
Yeah,
partners?
I'll leave a scarier tale. Okay, so what we're experiencing today is, credentials being leaked on the dark web, you know, phishing emails that are random, initial access brokers using some of that. You take AI and the automation of this data collection and phishing and spoofing and using information on LinkedIn. And when you start to get to spear phishing at scale, millions of targeted emails as opposed to millions of generic emails, they're going to fool a lot more employees. And if those employees are not trained, they're going to fall for it. If they don't have MFA, and they're going to be breached. So what we're experiencing today is nothing compared to what we're going to see in 6 months, a year, and 2 years. I mean, I don't want to be an alarmist, but what I see with AI and automation, all of this data that's out there is definitely going to be, they're going to leverage AI for cybercrime, and it's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think as I was, several years ago, as I was starting to ramp up the concept of Evo, this was, back in like 2015. One of the things the trends that I was trying to follow that was kind of shocking is just like, in the same way that you can go online and like download some software to do something on your computer, and it might be free, you might have to pay for it. A cyber criminal can do the same thing,
Yep.
but they're tools that they can use to automate the ability to go and try and hack into specific accounts and all kinds of things that they can do. And so, yeah, I do think you're right with the level of automation that's coming and intelligence. As cool as that is, it could
Yeah.
also be used against us, right? So, focusing on the fundamentals, I think, is just so key.
Yep.
As we move into the future.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Cool. Well, great chatting today. Really enjoyed it, and hopefully, folks that tuned in learned something, and look forward to speaking with you again. And we'll see you around at the next show.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciated being on here, and great talking with you, Mike. Take care, everyone.
Yeah. All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.